Hi, I'm Eric Gadby, and I have been an enthusiast for all things nautical and aerospace since the age of 10. I served for 22 years in the U.S. Submarine Force and have been supporting it for the last 15 years since retiring. Join me as I pursue my passion for first-person context for ships, aircraft, and historic sites that have shaped our world, as well as some that are off the beaten path. Welcome to the Museum and Flight in Seattle, Washington, home to Boeing B-52G Stratofortress 59-2584, otherwise known as Midnight Express. It is the centerpiece of a memorial park where visitors can reflect upon the B-52 and the nearly 8,000 other U.S. military aircraft lost during the Vietnam War. Okay, welcome to the Memorial Air Park here at the Museum of Flight in Seattle. This is a B-52G model. We're looking at the nose of the aircraft right now. The two blisters that you see here, those fairings rotate around, and it's a low light level and infrared camera system for both piloting the aircraft in low or near zero light conditions, as well as for the bombers for aiming the weapon system. Now, speaking of the bomber and navigator, these two hatches that you see here, the ejection seats for the two in the lower level actually fire downwards. You'll see that in the actual video that I did in the cockpit as part of this. The crew access hatch folds down, and there's a small ladder that goes with it. This aircraft is actually setting up a few feet, so normally you would actually have to crouch down to get into it. Just going to pull back here and give you a broadside of the aircraft. And have cooling, inlet air for cooling. There's large electronics bay right behind that had fairly decent heat load, and they needed to dissipate it. And that was one of the ways they did it. Landing gear, it's considered to be a bicycle gear system. Has four wheels, very narrow on the aircraft, but they all four articulate and can rotate to align with the runway if they are crabbing for a landing in a crosswind situation. Okay, this portion of the fuselage just forward of the bomb bay would be for, there's a fuel tank as well as a injection water tank right located there. They used a wet thrust for takeoff to improve approximately 2,500 pounds extra thrust for the duration that they had the water for. And bomb pylon for external loads. Just going to look around here underneath the wing. And you can see the bomb bay doors there along the bottom of the fuselage. Okay, looking at inboard engines, this is B3 and 4. Inlets for these are a turbojet engine. There's not a turbofan yet. The two nacelles that you see underneath, those are for the oil coolers. And the one that's on the outside here, outboard side, this blister and that cooling inlet, that is for the generator. The B-52 was powered by 8 Pratt & Whitney J57 turbojet engines. It consisted of a 9-stage low-pressure compressor, a 7-stage high-pressure compressor, 8 canannular flame tubes, a single high-pressure turbine, and a 2-stage low-pressure turbine. And continuing on the leading edge here, the B-52 does not have any high lift devices on the leading edge of the wing. It does have Fowler Flaps that are on the trailing edge, but nothing on the leading edge. And have engines 1 and 2 here. And to the outboard of the wing here, one of the external tanks. This is a 3,000-gallon fuel tank. It added extra mass as well as fuel to help with flutter for the wings. And this is the outrigger wheel that you see here, that whenever it would be fully laden with fuel and with bombs, these would actually, the wings could potentially have drugged almost down and drugged the actual runway. So they put these outriggers on to provide for support. Okay, we're going to walk along the trailing edge of the wing here. Okay, where I'm standing right now would be looking at the outboard Fowler flap that would come down, that the jet blast from engines 1, 2, 3, and 4 would blast around it. Then you'd have a gap here, and then you'd have an inboard set of flaps as well. They're a single piece, but they do extend out substantially down to, I believe, a 45-degree angle. And walk along here to see the bomb bay doors. You can see very large bomb bay. It goes all the way up inside the fuselage, all the way up to the top. Very extensive load of different persuasions. Okay, rear landing gear. As I mentioned earlier, all 4 wheels can articulate. You can see that there, that it has a steering mechanism on it. And this was an analog aircraft. You can see cables that control pretty much everything. Now the rear of the fuselage is actually a pretty substantial fuel tank in its own right back here. So there'll be fuel here all the way up almost to the tail of the aircraft, as well as in the wing tanks. Approximately 48,000 gallons, or about 6.5 large tanker trucks that you would see filling up at like an AMPM or a Chevron or something. You have the empennage here, the vertical stabilizer and the horizontal stabilizer. The B-52, you can see, had a very tiny rudder compared to the size of it, and that loss of command authority, is kind of an Achilles heel for it. Interesting quirk on the B-52s is that there's a mechanism, and that little blister that you see there can be taken off, and you can actually disconnect the actual vertical stabilizer, and with it using a worm gear jack system, actually flip it over to either work on the rudder or the stabilizer. And it takes all day to do the jack screw, but yeah. Now we'll look at the horizontal stabilizer. Once again, B-52 is kind of unique in an aircraft this size that uses a stabilator. It is both the horizontal stabilizer as well as a elevator. You have just a tiny trim tab on the back of it, but the entire surface moves, one big slab. And you have vortex generators here to help with adhering airflow to the airfoil at different low speeds, or where they would get separation from the flow. And underside of the rear of the aircraft. The B-52G model introduced the remote controlled gun, where you have that actually is radar control systems for the 4-barrel 50 caliber gun system. So the earlier models actually had a manned position back here. Okay, at the base of the fin, you go forward about 3 feet there. There's a pop-up door that is for the parachute. I'll put in a nice graphic here that shows the parachute deployed. And we'll continue on here underneath the starboard horizontal stabilizer. Once again, you can see the vortex generators. And get you a nice ground level look at the aircraft here. So we took a look inside the wheel well just a minute ago. Okay, and this is the bomb bay from the starboard side. And we'll take a look in here at the forward gear. Okay, forward gear. Lots of analog equipment, control cables that you see here. They actually come all the way through the length of the aircraft. You can see some of them in the outboards there as well here. And this is the actual retraction mechanism for the starboard forward wheel. It rotates or articulates back up aft into the position that I'm in right now. And more control cables, and you see. And control cables that actually control, steering, the I want to walk along here on the underside of the starboard wing. You see here, this is the inboard Fowler flap that you see. Then you have the starboard weapons pylon. Many different types of loads could be placed on this, from gravity bombs to nuclear bombs to, some of the old ones actually had the cruise missile actually had the ability to be run in concert with the ship's or the aircraft's engines. Many different and engines. What is it? This would be 5 and 6. And just to give you an idea just how massive underneath the the wing is. And the G model was the first one that they actually went to a wet wing. The previous models had rubber bladders inside of the wing structure. And so with the G model, to reduce weight and improve performance, they had a wet wing where they removed the bladders, and the actual skin of the wing forms the tank. And we're going to take a jump down here off this ledge. Okay, and this is the outboard Fowler flap. And the fuel tank and the outrigger gear. So the G model also was the first to remove, there's no ailerons out here on the wings. At high speeds, the ailerons would actually warp the wing and actually provide control authority in the opposite direction. To counteract that, they actually moved to what is called a Spoileron. And we'll see if I can zoom in. So the Spoilerons have essentially the same function. They're both a spoiler, and they provide authority to, turn the aircraft, lift. Okay. And taking a look here down engines 5, 6, 7, and 8. And this brings us back around to the forward starboard of the aircraft. And back to the crew access hatch here.